is Ask Man Radio. This is the weekly music podcast where every week we get into our album of the week, where we break down the album, we get into the music, the lyrics, the artwork, everything in between. My name is Tyler. Way out there, hundreds of miles away, is Jeff. While you're listening, go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars, tell all your friends, share all the posts. And we are in hip hop season. We are starting out hip hop season. We're doing it by decade. By decade, this week we're doing 80s hip hop. So we did an 80s album. And what are we doing this week, Jeff?
We are doing Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back.
There you go. I have a tough time saying that one, remembering it. So, but I'm glad you got it. So we're getting into this record. You said you think this is objectively the best album from the 1980s. I disagree. It's my number 4.
Before we even just get into all of this thing, do you want to just hear something funny?
Let's get into it.
I know you do. So when I Googled Whoop, There It Is, who sings that song, and it came up as tag team for whatever fucking reason, Google thought I should look at this Reddit thread that said, what genre of music does each turtle like to listen to? Right? Because like the Ninja Turtles.
Oh, the Ninja Turtle. Okay.
And obviously I clicked the fucking thing because I need to know which turtle. And I was already kind of like percolating which genre each turtle listened to. And the first comment is, I know for sure that they don't like bebop or rocksteady.
Oh, that's good. That's a joke, dude. That was a good one. That's such low hanging fruit. It is
absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And it's the first comment. That's
God, but it's so obvious. Yeah, just very, very low hanging fruit.
Anyway, yes, I do think It Takes a Nation is the best record in hip hop from the 80s. One of the best records in the 80s from any genre, actually. But yeah, I think this is the best. I don't think it's fucking close.
All right.
I don't.
So, what was I going to... damn it, I forgot what I was going to say.
Not much, yeah. I can keep going. We're doing origin stories, first impression.
I was going to say something else, but now I can't remember. But yeah, let's get into this. Let's start out hip-hop season with this, and let's do our origin story with Public Enemy. What do you got? Go.
Okay, so origin story with Public Enemy is probably in the same time where I got into like hip-hop music, but I really got into like West Coast gangster rap. Easy was and still is my jam. This is my favorite. I like it. I don't give a fuck. It's my mindless self-indulgence. It's my Wednesday Frankenstein from Planet 19. That's what it is for me. I don't care, God. And I'll die. I'll die in that hill. Hey, it is what it is.
Hey, that's on
live,
2 no-no list.
Love.
That's 3 things on the no-no list. You're fine. You're out. You're done. Leave.
Yeah.
3
strike. You're out. But Public Enemy has always been a band that has existed in the realm of hip hop, but because I was so adamantly West Coast kid, it took a long time for me to get into Public Enemy, and it wasn't until End of Watch. Remember that movie with the Jake Gyllenhaals and?
Yeah, I've never actually seen it.
If you like cop movies, and that's all it is. If you like cop movies, you'll like this. If you don't really cop movies, whatever. Then you're fine.
I have nothing against cop movies. Nothing against cop movies.
You gotta like cop movies, right? Like, nah.
I like Lethal Weapon. It's a cop movie, dude. That's a cop movie, dude. Die Hard. That's a cop movie, dude.
Okay, so I should rephrase that.
I know what you're. I know what you're
like. Cop
to.
movies based in reality, I guess, is a little more in line with this one. But it really wasn't until End of Watch. End of Watch had Harder Than You Think, that Public Enemy song.
Oh, dude, that's
ding, 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 which is my favorite Public Enemy song.
That's probably one of the greatest hip hop songs ever. Like that's top 10 best hip hop song ever made.
But that was like 2010-ish, 2012, 13, 14, 11, 10, maybe 2010 when that movie came out. It was definitely after high school, and it was definitely like probably
like 07.
No, because it was either after I was out of college or like right when I was getting out of college.
You were actually right for once. It's 2012.
Oh, I said 10, 12, 13.
I know.
12,
I said you're
11.
Actually right for once.
Yeah. Well, it was a broad year gap. But anyway, that was when I heard that song. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, dude, that's a really cool song. And that's from like the 2007-8 album. So then I went back and listened to Public Enemy. I was like, I wonder if I missed something. And even though none of their songs were like that in their first 3 or 4, I was blown away. I was like, damn, how did I fucking miss this? And I know how I missed this because I was so enthralled with gangster rap and being so regional and being a West Coast kid. That's how I missed it. But then I did like East Coast stuff because I like anything to do with like conscious hip hop, and some of my favorite stuff in the '90s is going to be East Coast stuffs. But yeah, that's kind of my introduction to Public Enemy, I guess, overall.
That late, okay, all right.
Yeah.
My origin story with Public Enemy is the Anthrax collaboration they did with Bring the Noise. That was on the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 soundtrack, which I didn't play it as much as the first game, but I played it a fucking lot. And yeah, the song was on that album, that soundtrack. First time I ever heard of Public Enemy at that point. So what was that, like 8th grade, maybe something like that?
Yeah.
And we had to have been 13, 14 when I heard that song. But I never I remember going and looking up some of the songs and not really caring, because once again at that time hip hop was not my thing at all. I didn't get into hip hop until after high school. And so yeah, I just kind of forgot about it. And then Korn did a cover of Fight the Power with Exhibit. Yeah, with Exhibit. And that's a fucking cool. Have you ever heard that cover?
I've listened to a lot of covers this week, including.
Did you listen to that one?
Yes.
What'd you think of it?
It was stupid.
It's fucking so good. And apparently
stupid.
that Korn cover, they did it originally with Little John, and instead of Exhibit, they did it with Little John. They recorded the whole song, but then they weren't allowed to release it because of Little John's record label. So then they ended up redoing it with Exhibit, and that the Little John version still has never been heard to this day.
Oh, so, that would be interesting.
But yeah, and so that was the second time I heard of Public Enemy, and still never really, I didn't care enough about their music until maybe since the vinyls, really, honestly, until we started collecting vinyl like 4 years ago, that I really started to get into Public Enemy and realized, damn, dude, they have some of fucking amazing records. Their first 4 record, or really their first record's fine. But yeah, this one, it takes a nation, Fear of a Black Planet, and then was it Apocalypse 91?
Yeah.
Fucking great records. Fucking all great records right there. So I don't know. That's my origin story. Yeah, it's more, the first album's more like 80s hip hop, like golden era hip hop, that kind of bounciness, the kind of that common cadence with the vocal delivery. But they really just, I mean, Public Enemy really starts at It Takes a Nation. This is really their first record to me, but whatever. So let's get into our initial thoughts on It Takes a Nation. Get into any stinkers if we got them, and then jump into some bangers and then go from there. So what do you got? Go.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to unpack, and it's just, this is the start of hip hop season, so I feel like we're going to tread on that fence here of flirting with hip hop origins and its growth in the 80s, and then also talking about this record specifically. So there's going to be like an 8-hour seminar in the next hour. So it's gonna be tough, but we'll do our best here.
Couple white guys talking about hip hop. Yeah,
because there's a lot to talk about here. But yeah, my first impressions of this. I don't think I fully understood what this was until like 2000. Was it 2012? Yeah, 2012 when I went back and listened to their stuff, and I was like, holy shit, man! I get this. I get why people have been saying this is like the best of the 80s. I get why people have been saying this is one of the most important hip hop records ever made. Like, I understand that now, because this is a punk record. This is a punk record, and they're just rapping. Like, that's what it is.
Faster tempos, everything.
That's exactly what that's what hip hop needed to be, right? Hip hop needed to stay underground, and it needed to build this like clientele of punkers and rejects and people that just railed against the status quo, not necessarily just like black people, but just anybody that just fucking hated everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Any punker in the 80s and 90s just latched onto this. And this is unlike NWA, where NWA was a specific demographic of people they were railing against. It was really, really like systemic racism in policing, in politics, whereas like Public Enemy is like, no, dude, fuck you who think like this genre of music is bad, not like just because we're black. It's like, no, this genre of music, right? The whole bring the noise concept. Yeah. It was, there's so many like snowballing away from me, but That's why that paper was a really fun read too. Fucking boring as fucking dry. And I just like, why when you write things in like an academia sense, like there's so much word vomit, right? Like blogs are fun because blogs get to the point and there's a target audience with blogs, so it's easier to read because I'm here for this reason, and you're going to tell me that reason, either reaffirm it or be contrarian to that reason. Whereas like in an academia stance, it's just very much fucking word vomit. And like how many pages can I fill up to say just like 2 pages worth of shit?
To meet my quota.
And it's like, fucking irritating.
Agreed.
But it was written like 1992 or some shit like that. So I get it.
All right.
What's your question? I don't remember what your question was.
That was, I mean, first impressions. First impressions on this record. You know, I think this is they really fucking went for it on this record, politically, musically. I mean, they blew everything out. Every other artist up to this point, every other rapper, they just fucking destroyed. You know what they were talking about politically, religiously, with all the, you know, talk of Islam and, you know, Farrakhan. You know, I didn't realize like how big of I didn't like, is Chuck D, is he Muslim? I don't know. Like, he talks about Farrakhan a lot, so I just kind of assumed he was. I mean, Flavor Flav, I just don't think he just gives a fuck. He just wants to party. You know, that's all he wants to do is party. But I mean, Chuck D.
Like the only real knock I have for this group and this era and this record is a lot of times it does seem like they're just latching on to whatever is popular, whatever is relevant right now. Like, what can we talk about that will get us like followers right now today? Yeah, that is the only knock I have of this otherwise perfect record.
The one thing, the one negative thing I have to say about this band is not their music, it's their image. I mean, it's goofy. It's goofy as hell, man. They like, it's one thing to be tough and go against, you know, the establishment, the government, all that kind of thing, but just with the uniforms and having like your little group of guys and everything, and you're all in uniform and you're doing all, just some of the imagery is just kind of like, it's kind of goofy, it's silly. But I mean, I guess in the 90s, and you know, we were just born. We were only a year old when this album came out in 1988. So it's like, maybe if you were at that time, this is very progressive and shocking. Like these you know, these black guys are on stage like talking about, you know, overthrowing the government and, you know, Islam and all this kind of stuff, wearing these uniforms and shit. I mean, that's, I guess in hindsight, it looks silly now, but in the 80s, yeah, I take back what I said. In hindsight, it looks silly, but back then it was probably scary, for sure, especially to white America.
And this is going to be one of those episodes too, where we just rail against like what the horrible political climate was like in the 80s, and there's a lot of like crack epidemic going on in this record, and that whole scene. And there was I have books, dude. I read books, dude.
Well, you don't read books.
One of the books one of the few books I own, probably 10 books. Okay. $10. 2 are cookbooks. One is a Ninja Turtles cookbook, and also one's a Grateful Dead calendar. That's like every day there's a fact about the Grateful Dead. It's a book. What makes a book a book? What makes a book a book?
Story.
So like an encyclopedia is not a book. A dictionary is not a book.
I wouldn't say a calendar is a book.
But it's not a calendar. It's like,
but you just said it was a calendar.
I know, but like all you do is like, it says like day 1. It's not like January 1st. It says day 1, and then it says like Jerry Garcia was born. Blah, 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 blah. It's like a whole like fucking, I don't know, probably like half a page about just book. This. And then
it's a trivia
day
book.
2. It's something so you can just learn about the Grateful Dead. But like, I don't know, like an encyclopedia is a book, right? There's a book.
Yeah, it's a book. It is a book. Yeah.
I'll learn the fucking story of that. Anyway,
continue.
Anyway, so like when I because I do think like some of the shit is goofy as fuck, man. Especially like Eric B and Rakim are doing the whole gold chain thing and like getting as much like bling as they possibly can, just because they could, just because they had some extra money they never had before. And I get it, right? When we get money as a kid, we're fucking stupid, dude. Like all those bars we went to, all those Nordstrom's trips that I went to and bought stupid fucking Lucky jeans and Sevens and whatever the fuck they were. I don't know. You just buy shit.
Now look at you. You only wear free t-shirts. You don't buy t-shirts. You don't buy clothes anymore. You only wear free shit. That's called
phasing out, dude. At some point, you phase out of that lifestyle.
Yeah, you do.
But this is the 80s, and this isn't just the 80s. This is like New York City 80s, where there's a long-standing conspiracy that like the government dropped crack into like the New York City boroughs, into like the slums, into the predominantly black areas, and introduced crack to these people, introduced crack to these neighborhoods. And there's a lot of that going on in the 80s and on this record. So yeah, it does seem goofy that they're in these uniforms, but like Chuck D has said that he's adamant that during these recordings, his phone would like turn off. Like their phones that they would use would turn off between the hours of like midnight and like 3 a.m. Like they would just be silent and they couldn't use their phones at all.
That's crazy.
And so he'd be on the phone with the phone company. Like, what the fuck's going on with my phone? Like we're recording all night and shit. And the phone company, oh, we fix it. Don't worry about it. And then like next night it would happen again. And this could just be like his, he's just being a little paranoid, or it could be like the government shutting his fucking phone down because they don't want him dealing drugs or being a part of a gang or affiliating with a gang or disseminating information that could be part of like an overthrowing of the government or something like that. That's wild to think about. That's what he believes. I don't know. It's really information.
I kind of believe it because, it's not past the government to illegally wiretap. I mean, look at Watergate, dude. Legally wiretapping, citizens, this kind of shit. And, especially with guys like these, like Chuck D, he's openly against the government, big government, the CIA, talking about the crack epidemic and how it was sponsored by the CIA, which I honestly believe. I honestly really, really do believe that happened. So I get him being harassed by the FBI or CIA or whatever government entity you want to throw out there. I don't know. Yeah. I believe it.
And just to think like, and like the whole like FBI thing, right? FBI was created by Roosevelt and they were not, I don't know, maybe like back when it started, it was okay to spy on people or what. I don't fucking know. Who knows? And we just kind of like widely accept the fact that the Patriot Act like still exists and we were spied on. And that's a whole different ball game there. But
I know. And the fact that we all have devices now that have microphones and 24 hours a day,
which is actually it's really funny when people are so terrified of AI, like AI is going to take over the world. And it's like, bro, like you act like
how long
somebody
have you had a cell
in the
phone
government, for? Somebody in the government doesn't know more about you than you know yourself. Like, get the fuck out of here. Grow up.
You've had a cell phone for how long? And really, honestly, the reason why we're being surveilled is for advertising purposes. It's not for anything nefarious. Most of the time, it's not going to be something nefarious. It's because
who do you think
corporations, Apple wants to sell your information to these corporations to sell you advertising. That's all it is. That's all it fucking is.
To think it's a very pretentious. I don't know if it's an American concept or a global concept.
It's a human.
But it's a very pretentious human thing to think that. Oh, I don't want to be surveilled. Like, bro, like nobody gives a fuck
People
about
think
you
that,
and going to make kissing noises to your dog and then drink your shitty fucking drinks and make cereal for dinner. Like, fuck out of here. Nobody cares. Nobody fucking cares. Anyway,
as we record video that we're going to post on the internet for everyone to see.
Yeah, fuck, I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. Like when Google asked me, like, hey, do you mind if we like start tracking your whereabouts or some shit like that on Google Maps? It asked me like the other day, it was like, do you mind if we start like keeping logs of like where you've been to? I was like, don't you already do that?
Yeah, you already do that anyway.
Because I've typed into Google before. It says you visited here like 4 years ago. I was like, dude, don't you already fucking do that? Like, what are you doing?
And then if you're accused of a crime, they could subpoena Google. I think it's what they subpoena Google or whatever, and get all of your data right there. They can pinpoint you. I mean, that's been going on for 25 years now.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was key that Google said that to me. I said no, of course, because I'm a human.
Yeah.
Fuck the government. Fuck the government. Yeah, that's I guess that goes back to the overall aesthetic of hip hop and Public Enemy and everything that was going on in the 80s, dude.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into. So do we have any stinkers on this record? Let's get into the music, the songs, lyrics, and everything. So do we have any stinkers? I have none.
No, there are truly no stinkers on this record. This is a weird one because although I don't think there are filler songs, I think that if you take these individual songs out, they become filler songs, but as a whole, like the sum of its parts is more than like the individual parts. What the fuck?
Yeah, I get it.
I don't know how that phrase goes. I don't know sayings, dude. I think if you take these songs out individually,
you use that force
it lessens their value. Because this is a timepiece. This is something that existed, and it showed. This is why. So we're now going to get into like why I think this is the most important record of the '80s, and maybe one of the most important records in hip hop, because this album has that punk aesthetic, right? That weird kind of like quirkiness going on, and I think that overall that harkens back to like blues musicians, to jazz musicians, to predominantly black musicians, and the use of like dissonance in music, where it's not what we're doing, but it's like the absence of what we're not doing. And you hear a lot of that in just weird time signatures and structures and chord arrangements from like jazz musicians and even blues musicians, where you're following that standard 12-bar blues, but you get guys that are just doing it a little bit weird, a little bit different, a little bit out of the box, kind of just like quirky. And all of these things kind of go against like our westernized vision of what music should sound like. Because as humans, we like melody, we like rhythm. That's how we recite stories, poems. That's how we tell tales. That's how we pass down information prior to the written language, is through story. And the easiest way to tell stories is through rhythmic tellings, is through things like that. And so when you get things that disrupt that, it becomes weird. It becomes something that I don't like this, because it is not normal. And that is what, like, that's what makes, and I'm not a big jazz guy, but this is what like jazz people tell me. That's what makes like, oh, that's what makes this fucking jazz artist so great. That's what makes Mingus so great. That's what makes Miles Davis so great. That's what makes Coltrane so great, is because of the dissonance, what they're doing in the downtime, what they're not doing.
Yeah, what they're not doing
over what they are doing, right? What it makes you feel like when they're not doing something. And that's what this is, dude. This record is rife
so pretentious though.
But it's true.
I get it.
It's true, because this record, it sounds pretentious because we're so conditioned to just liking generic pop music, because we're so conditioned to liking Everclear music when we should be liking.
It's true, dude.
I couldn't think of a fucking pretentious thing that Skip liked. We're so used to liking mush music, right?
No,
we're so used to digesting that. I don't know. Everything he fucking likes is pretentious.
Pavement,
He's a pretentious, the most pretentious thing.
Fucking Joy Division. That's very pretentious.
Yeah, I don't like Joy Division.
I don't get it. I don't get Joy Division. David Bowie, pretentious.
There you go. There's a pretentiousness thing, pretension thing.
Yes.
So yeah, it's going back to this. There's a lot of, dude, almost like, I would say like half of this record is Chuck D rapping off time, rapping off beat. And the samples they're using in hip hop in general, the samples they use aren't always in key. They don't always match up, but like, that's the point. Like, it doesn't always need to be a steady flow, like a river, right? It could be like rapids. It could be choppy. And that's like the point of this. And this took it to like the X degree, to where like no one had did this beforehand, for sure. And people tried to replicate this exact sound. And that's why I don't think NWA deserves to be in that top spot, because NWA fell into that kind of like generic pop sense where everything flowed really nice.
When they were
this was choppy and weird. This was more than punk, because punk was still melodic. The Clash was still melodic. The Ramones still melodic. Sex Pistols tried to be melodic. They just sucked at everything they did. But this is something different. This is like true gutter punk, fucking weird, nasty shit that was deliberately made to piss off not just like the target demographic of what they perceived as, either be it like record executives, white people, punkers, whoever it was. They didn't give a fuck. They just hated anybody that didn't like them personally. And they took this record personally. And that's what makes it so goddamn good.
And I mean, so like you mentioned, like NWA, a lot of other artists up until everybody else up until this point, they were sampling songs, James Brown, Funkadelic, Parliament Funkadelic, just all these other songs, like a bass line, a guitar loop, a synth, whatever it may be. It was always like, it was very melodic, but the way that Public Enemy was doing it, and DJ Terminator X, he was literally, or I'm sorry, the Bomb Squad, because that's really who wrote this record. It was Chuck D and the Bomb Squad, the 2 or 3 guys in that production team. which were all part of the Public Enemy umbrella, under the Public Enemy umbrella. But what it was they were just finding random sounds. Like they would literally say, yeah, this is a really annoying sound, let's kind of fuck it up and warp it and then loop it and then make the song around that. And that's literally what you hear like these fucked up like bells and whistles and shit that aren't melodic, but the way that they're looped with like this really fucking heavy faster beat, and then you have Chuck D rapping over it. It's like, what the fuck is this? This is so weird. I've never heard of anything like this. Like, this is more than, because like at this point you had like people were introduced to using drum machines and hip hop and all this kind of stuff, but they were still using like an underlying like, you know, bass line or guitar loop, whatever it may be. But these guys just fucking did whatever the hell they wanted. And yeah, I agree. It was kind of like the punk thing to do. It was so against the grain, something nobody had really done. It's very, very significant. And you hear a lot of hip hop doing it after this, you know, up until now, like random noises looped and things and, you know, distorted whatever, you know, it's fucking, it's weird.
So like when we got, if we go back to like EPMD and Eric B and Rakim, we get like a different type of flow. We get something more deliberate. People are thinking about what they're saying and they're saying it, and it means something, and it means something not just for hip hop, but for like the societal consciousness of what people want to be in when they listen to hip hop music. When you get Chuck D's voice in there, you think in your mind, how, because if you replace Chuck D and put his vocals in like Eric B and Rakim, EPMD, it would be garbage. Like you need something to match the intensity of Chuck D's voice. And there's no way you can do it by conventional standards. So there's something like inherently antagonistic to what this record is supposed to sound like. This record is purposeful in its antagonistic like demeanor.
It's abrasive.
It sounds like shit. This record sounds like shit. And by like normal like concepts of music, this record sounds like garbage. Again, he raps off key or off time constantly. He just fucking starts saying shit like Snoop Dogg. Dude, Snoop Dogg is
it's
terrible.
Almost like spoken word almost at points.
Like a stream of consciousness thing.
Yeah.
But even if you still if you took Chuck G out of this and just kept Chuck G, CG, James Brown and the CGs, JBs. If you took him out of this, it would still be a fun record. It's still a great produced record. It's still, dude, Terminator X is fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't. So like what I read online versus what I read in like the book that I read, because I read books. The one hip hop book that I have that I own, because they do the whole interview with Chuck D, and he paints like a totally different picture in how he said, obviously because he's the main guy, so whatever he says is going to be gospel. But he claims that when they're in the studio, it's all of them. It's all of them. They're all fucking around, and also like going back even a little bit further, but to even go back even further to like Run DMC and how much like Russell and Rick Rubin hated the idea of doing like Walk This Way. No, sorry, the opposite way. DMC hated the idea of Walk This Way, but then leading into Public Enemy, where Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons hated Flavor Flav. They're like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, what does he do for this band? Like, he's a nobody. Like, we can market you and we can market the band. You guys are great. And Chuck D just straight was like, you sign him or we walk. And this is like 4 years into, because they've been like doing stuff as a different moniker before that for like 4 years prior to this when they were in college and stuff, which is also a cool thing too. Like just the whole like black people in college, right? In the 80s, like we don't rap about that. Like we don't rap about getting higher education. And it's like, yeah, we fucking can. Like they can't. Like you say, we, like I'm black. Like, yes, they can rap about like being in college and do stuff here. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rick Rubin and fucking Russell, they did not like Flavor Flav, but Chuck D was like, no, dude. Because they asked, like, what does he bring? And he brings flavor. And like, that's exactly the whole thing. That's he brings flavor.
Yeah.
And then they heard him and like, okay, I get it. That's pretty dope. And that's something we hadn't heard rap either. Like we hear people like trading verses back and forth. We hear one guy doing his thing versus like another guy doing their thing. And that's like Run DMC, right? And they kind of go back and forth. Beastie Boys did it. But we never heard one guy doing their thing and another guy like hyping that dude up.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
I think the reason why Flavor Flav works so well or works perfectly with this, one or two things, because he's goofy as fuck. He's goofy as hell compared to how serious Chuck D is in his delivery and his lyrics. But also, these songs have no choruses. There's no hooks. So how do you transition between the verses, between the parts? how do you do an intro? That's where Flavor Flav comes in, because you got to have that transition, and he is the perfect transition. He hypes you up between the verses, the intros, during the verses too, like as the backup, just yelling and just kind of just feeling good, and just dude, Flavor Flav
his iconic
is perfect for this
wail, right? The yeah boy.
Yeah boy.
And that's what you say when you hear something fucking that you like. Yeah. Like you get excited. Yeah, boy. And he's just saying what we're all thinking, man. Right?
This whole album, this whole career, this whole group's career. I
think that like at its basis, like the reason this is exponentially important to music, not just like hip hop, but to music, is that this really, really did like showcase like black plight, dude. Just like here is where like black people stand in America. Here is why the crack epidemic is decimating the black population. And you see like murders from black on black crime, murders, dude, just growing tenfold after during the 80s, and
families falling apart, and just dude, it was crazy the shit that was going on in the 80s.
And it's one thing, and then we'll like, if we do Nas, we don't do Nas, whatever. But like Nas painted also a very similar picture to where now you can actually put yourself in that position, where it's like here you're being like, oh damn, I didn't know this was happening. And that's what this kind of record is doing. Whereas Nas is like, damn, now I feel what is happening. Like now I have empathy for what is happening. Whereas this is more like, damn, and I'm acknowledging I understand what is happening. And that's wild. And this is one of the most punk records that's ever been written. Just ever been written.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Like this is, I don't know. I'm off the rails, dude. I have so many fucking notes that aren't even like based on the song titles or anything like that. So go ahead.
So let's get into our number one bangers. So what is your favorite song on this record?
You dude, think Bring the Noise is the best song on this record.
Exactly.
Like,
it is the best
not
song.
Even a fucking contest.
Yeah, it is. Second track. The intro, honestly, who needs the intro? You don't really need the intro. But yeah, when he says bass.
Bass. The way he says bass, I just love bass.
Because he has a very like deep baritone bass tone too.
Damn, it's so good. But like the intro's cool too. The whole idea of being deliberately, the air raid
sirens and
like coffee black, right? Well, yeah. But like that's what we're getting into here. That's what this whole like aesthetic is. And I don't know. It's
scary to hear on a record in the 80s. Yeah.
It's carried throughout the entire record, right? Hank Shocklee had said this whole album is a deliberate attempt at being disruptive. And then some songs I talked about they're not quite in time. Some things are slightly out of tune. Sometimes they're just making noise, and it's all left in there. Like they could have cut it out in post. They could, because they worked really hard at this, but they didn't want to, because that's what this music is supposed to be. It's a deliberate attempt to make this music strong, to make this music like black coffee. Wake up, people.
Okay. Is that a Seinfeld reference? I don't know.
That was Miss Summergren. I was just saying wake up.
Oh, okay. Okay. Deep cut.
Yeah, deep cut. Our high school fucking drama teacher. Everybody knows her for sure.
Everybody knows Miss Summergren, yeah.
But also, like in doing this whole like intro thing here, and that whole Malcolm X speech it's pretty cool too. Like I enjoy it. And some Malcolm X stuff, I'm like, bro, that's a little much. Like in today's climate, I don't know if that translates well. But then some of the stuff, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, dude. You said something, dude.
I would agree. Yeah, but Malcolm X was definitely extreme. Yeah. But we're once again, we're a couple white guys, so. What do we know?
We're getting into the noise part though. This was like the reason why Public Enemy became Public Enemy, because Yo Bum vs. Show is just whatever, dude. That literally record. Is to me like that is noise. That is just, if you guys kept doing that sound, that is your license to ill. That is your license to ill. That is nothing. Like whatever. 10 years from now, no one's gonna give a fuck. 50 years from now, no one's gonna give a fuck. But because they chose to like challenge like Western norms in music, especially in like hip hop and pop music coming out of the 80s, and like the biggest fucking record, one of the biggest selling records in the 80s was like George Michael, right? George Michael. We're talking like Appetite for Destruction has just come out. So there's a lot of like really big bangers that you have to compete with So
Yeah.
like in concept, like the noise plays a big part in like the Public Enemy history, with early haters calling their music absolutely noise. And that was a lot of like periodicals, like people were writing like articles about Public Enemy and actually literally calling their things noise, calling their music noise. It's just noise. Hip hop is just noise. These guys are just making noise. But again, dude, it's going back. And again, I'm not a big jazz guy, but like the more I listen to jazz, like the more I understand where people kind of like attach themselves to. But like Thelonious Monk, right? Piano player, one of the greatest. And it's that dissonance, dude. It's just the noise that he can make. It's just, I can play you a 3-minute song, 2.5 minutes of that song is going to be just melodic and perfect and beautiful. But that 30 seconds is going to make you feel so fucking uncomfortable that you're going to wonder, why the fuck am I even listening to this? But I'll bring you back at the end. And it's that noise. And calling their music noise was the best thing to ever happen to like Public Enemy, because Chuck D took it so fucking personal.
He did.
He embraced that moniker while also like simultaneously connecting themselves to like Miles Davis and Thelonious Monk.
But I think it was also Chuck D's reaction to like, fuck the pop scene, fuck pop music, the record industry. They don't know what we're talking about. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. It's just a bunch of white guys. It's white supremacists, and I mean, what?
Well, it wasn't just white guys though. Like one of their biggest fucking opposers was like a black guy from fucking Florida or some shit. The DJ was it Magic or some shit like that. He fucking hated this group. He said they're awful. He called them noise too. But like the point of noise,
but in the end, it's Chuck D's reaction saying, fuck the establishment, fuck big business, fuck corporations, fuck the music industry, record companies. That's his whole, punk rock kind of anti-establishment.
It's deeper than that, though.
It is deeper because he has
deeper than that.
It is deeper than that because he actually has a fucking message. He actually says something in his music. But in the end, the knee-jerk reaction from Chuck D is fuck everybody, fuck every corporation, fuck government, fuck all that.
I think
that's the
like,
knee-jerk reaction from Chuck D.
Every fucking time. I think there's two different like takeaways from this. Like one is like, yes, fuck the government, but then also there's like, fuck the government, but here's what we can do. And I think that's what always separated Public Enemy is like, yes, fuck the government, either here's what we can do or fuck the government because of something, right? So like when we get a lot of punk groups and just like a dime a dozen punk groups where they're saying like, fuck the government, like Energy Burger, fuck you, whatever.
Yeah, okay.
But
don't bring the Vandals into that was a joke song. That was a joke song.
You can fuck the government all day long, but unless you're giving like why you're fucking the government or what can we do to not fuck the government, then it's just kind of like that. Like to me, that's just noise. That truly is just noise. You're just par for the course. And so when Public Enemy is coming out and they're fucking the government, and they don't even say like fuck the government here. It's just like everything about this, like here's the government and here's where they're fucking them. Everything else about this record is all right here. And it slowly closes in on that concept. And the more you listen to this record and the longer you listen to this record, you realize like, holy shit, here's the common enemy, right? Emony,
yes. Common enemy. Common enemy.
That's where Nemo lived. See an enemy. Anemone.
Anemone. An enemy.
An enemy?
An enemy? No, an enemy.
That's a enemy. That's an enemy. That's an enemy.
I think so. I think it's an enemy.
Public an enemy.
Pugic anemone.
Hold on, dude. So anyway, so like bring the noise. Here's the thesis statement for Public Enemy for their entire career.
The thesis statement 40 minutes in. Yes, go.
For their entire career, because the saxophone is considered to be the closest instrument of the human voice. That's what it is. That is true. The wide range of emotion and its design allows for like just a ton of expression. And much like the human voice of like Resistance, the samples chosen on this record represent that of like outspoken opposition. But yeah, the saxophone is considered to be like the closest instrument that people use to mimic like the human voice and the inflection and our emotion and the wide range of kind of like ups and downs that we can do. And so when we hear these samples on this record and it's just that that's a wail, and that's not a good sound, dude. That's not fun. That's not pleasing to my ears. But not all music is supposed to be pleasing, and not all like of this stuff is supposed to be digested easily.
Yeah.
And that's why like some of the greats, even like Hans Zimmer, like when he writes like he writes multiple musics. When he writes music for when he writes scores, that's a way easier way to say that. When you write scores, there's a lot like, dude, Hans Zimmer's like arguably the best, if not one of the best. What do you call him? Like a score for movies? Composer. Hey,
there you go.
We'll get there. He's one of the best composers of all time. And he does it a lot. Like
up
he
there
knows
with John
how
Williams,
to,
absolutely. Yeah.
He knows how. John Williams is definitely like up there too. I don't know, but they both know how to really, again, like it goes back to dissonance. I keep saying that word too.
Hans Zimmer is like the alternative version of John Williams. Like he's the metal guy. He's the darker guy. You know what I mean? Of John Williams, equally as good, but just in a different way.
Different, yes.
Yeah.
He embraces the kind of the weirdness, the quirkiness. Yeah. So I don't there you go. That's okay. What I got about Bring the Noise.
Bring the noise.
Bass.
Also, you can hear a little bit of the double bass, you know, and especially in that first verse, you hear it a little bit, but it's so buried in the mix. But maybe that might be the very first instance of like a double bass in a double pedal, double bass, whatever you want to call it, in a hip hop song. You never know. 1988 could be the first. But then it's all over the Anthrax version, which, you know, that drummer, I don't really care too much for. Was it Belafonte or something?
Harry Belafonte. He played drums for Anthrax.
Wait, what's the guy's name from Anthrax? Hold on. Anthrax. Oh, fuck.
Jello Biafra, Harry Belafonte. They're all the same people. It's me.
And it's like that Belladonna's the Benante, Charlie Benante. God, a lot of that's annoying.
A lot of stupid names.
Charlie Benante, the drummer. I don't think he's that good of a drummer, but people think, oh no, he's one of the greatest metal drummers of all time. It's like, fuck you, dude. He's not. He's fine.
Mean, we don't like Anthrax, and sorry guys.
Sucks. Anthrax kind of.
But here's the most fun I'll have with Anthrax, and the most nice things I'll say about Anthrax is Anthrax was a very, very early supporter of Public Enemy.
Yeah.
Like as this record came out, Scott Ian was wearing T-shirts that said Public Enemy. And especially when this record dropped, he was wearing T-shirts that said Public Enemy. And Chuck D was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, we're not going on tour with this. We're not doing nothing with this. I don't give a fuck who this is. But Chuck D went to an Anthrax show. He showed up to an Anthrax show. And he was like, wow, these guys are ripped, dude. But like, again, this is just Chuck D who doesn't know a lot about thrash music or metal music. So like to him, that blew his mind. And that's cool because it inspired a fantastic collaboration. And then it inspired a fantastic tour where Public Enemy was opening for Anthrax. Like, what the fuck?
Wild.
Like, that's insane. And then what that also did was make Public Enemy better because Anthrax, they're already touring. They're already putting on big shows. Anthrax, CK. They're already putting on big shows. They already have like a good production element to their shows. And so when Public Enemy would go on as openers, and they see all the kids out there, you know, they're not really moshing. They're not going crazy. So like Chuck D was like, how the fuck do we get these white kids to be as crazy for us as they do for Anthrax? And that made Public Enemy better. So Anthrax made Public Enemy better, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And honestly, the whole like rock rap thing, they did it better than Aerosmith and Run DMC. Although that song is great. The Walk This Way collaboration is fantastic. But the Anthrax Bring the Noise, so much better. Better.
Yeah, that song sucks.
It doesn't suck. Walk This Way is good.
After you hear Anthrax and Public Enemy do it, you're like, dude, this sucks. Like this is embarrassing. You guys are garbage.
Who, the Aerosmith Run DMC?
Yeah, this is so stupid. And the video's so fucking pathetic.
Yeah, it's a stupid video.
Steven Tyler is just like, dude, just retire, dude. My God.
And this is only like 12 years into their career. If that.
Give it a rest.
They were still young. They were like 30 when they made that video.
Give it a rest.
They were younger than us. Isn't that weird to think about? But they look like they're 50.
Yeah.
In that video.
I mean, like Steven Tyler, like aged, and then stopped. But like from here to there, it was like he aged 50 years and 20 years, but then has not aged since.
He has the Steve Martin syndrome. Where he looks
Steve Martin, yes.
Yeah, so by the time he hit 22, he's gonna look that same way until he dies.
You're already a grandpa.
You're already there, yeah. Anyway,
Yes.
0-2. God damn, dude. You know, I'm actually okay with not, because there's no way we're gonna get through a lot of these songs,
No.
and I'm okay with that because we've talked about a lot of the background, a lot of the messages that go along with that, and so I'm fine not going over a lot of the songs. But Bring the Noise was my number one as well. What's your number two?
I'm not even half done with my fucking notes for Bring the Noise, Baby Boy. Are you kidding me right now? We haven't even talked about the lyrics here. Are you joking my ass?
Well, the lyrics. So you have lyrics that you want to talk about on this one.
I do have lyrics I want to talk about.
What do you got?
Notes.
What do you got?
Not half my notes, like 30 minutes. Yeah, so like we talked about, this is about like hip hop itself not getting recognition and as something real or something to even be respected. And so the sampling use here and just the age of hip hop at the time are some things that didn't sit well with critics. Yeah. And that's why this song is titled Bring the Noise. And which is funny too, because it wasn't even the second track. They're flipped beforehand. In the last second, they flipped the record. Side A and side B was B and A prior to, like, right before. But anyway,
I get what you mean.
I like Malcolm X's speech at the beginning, because it's such a, I think it's so easy to read old speeches and be like, oh, that's so fucking literal, dude. That's so fucking, that's so like upfront. Like there's no nuance to that. Right? Because like we've seen so many fucking movies. We've seen so many things. We've
so many politicians talk and all this shit.
But like, damn, dude, the way Malcolm X talks about like diluting black coffee with white cream, and just like the more cream you add to it, it makes it more palatable. But at some point, like you're drinking white cream instead of just coffee anymore. And it's like, dude, that's pretty rad, man. Pretty rad from a guy that's just Malcolm X, I guess, right? That's cool. And I like that they did that. I like that they started the record off with that. I think it's fucking cool. Mm-hmm. Then we get Flav calling out the honey drippers, like both as a slang term.
What is the honey? I don't even know what that is.
I think the honey dripper as a slang term was just like rich people who don't know shit about anything. And they want to, like, rich white people essentially who don't know shit about anything and want to just assert their knowledge on things they don't know anything about.
Okay.
But I always saw the honey drippers as that stupid Robert Plant side project from where they're trying to like covers like 50. They're trying to cover like 50s era songs, like rhythm and blues
Robert
standards. Plant? Yeah, Robert Plant. He hooked up with like Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, and
I don't remember any of this.
Have you seen, dude? Just Google and take your hands like this and honey drippers. Okay. Vinyl.
Disrespectful. Okay.
And I bet you when you see what that cover is, like, oh, dude, I see this in the dollar bins all the time. Watch.
I spelled vinyl with an E at the end.
Vinyle.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well, it's so English.
I've never seen this. I've never
really?
seen this before. No, never seen it.
It's just it's Robert Plant.
Okay. Yeah, I've never ever seen it. But also, I don't own a record store like you do, so there's that.
That's true.
But anyway, continue.
No, that's it. We can move on. Moving on.
Okay, that was fast.
Yeah.
So what's your 2B?
Don't Believe the Hype.
Don't Believe the Hype. That's my 6. Wait, no, 5B. Let's get into it. What do you got?
That's wild. How is that your 5B? Okay.
There's
so Don't Believe
3
the
other
Hype.
songs that are better. 4 songs that are better.
Yeah, 3 songs that are better. Oh, no, you're right. 4 songs that are better. 3 we have not talked about.
Yes, that's what I was getting at, but okay.
Yes. Don't Believe the Hype. I love the sample in the back, like the softer acoustic sample under the louder wail. The Don't Believe the Hype mixing from Terminator is really fun. Mm-hmm. And Flavor has such a good contrast to Chuck in this one. He's sort of his goofier raspy vocals like slightly disarm Chuck, right? And that's really what like it comes down to. It's like I'm so like taken aback by Chuck yelling at me the whole time that when Flavor talks, it's like, oh, I can relate to him, but really you're relating to Chuck. It's just you don't know you are yet, and that's what makes him so perfect. But like he doesn't just say stupid shit. Everything he says has to mean something, and everything he says means something in the context of like the pacing of the song.
And also in this song too, that it's kind of there are. Like when Flavor Flav sings, it's kind of like a back and forth or like a call, almost like not a call and response, but a back and forth between him and Chuck at certain points during the verses, not the chorus where he says "Don't believe the hype," but during the verses, it's almost this like kind of they're not bad, but talking to each other, which is cool. You don't hear it too much on the record, but
it's funny too because I don't remember if it was in the documentary or for somewhere else that I read or the one book that I've read, but Hank was in DMC's car, and this is kind of cool too.
Hank is part of the Bomb Squad, the production team.
Hank Shockley, Keith Shockley.
I forgot the third guy. I forgot
Eric
the third
Sandin.
Guy. Yeah, from NoFX was there.
Yeah. And there's another guy too that I can't remember his fucking name.
There's 3-4 guys, but the Shockleys are the just the remember because
just a really actually honestly a very very underrated production team. Like they took a lot of time and a lot of effort putting together not just this, but they did a lot of records as the Bomb Squad.
Up through like the late 90s before they
split.
Yeah,
I don't want to like diminish their accomplishments because they were actually really really fucking good. But I can't remember. There's just too many. I don't give a fuck. It's like naming all the Wrecking Crew people. I don't know. I don't fucking know. So anyway, I don't know if it was in the documentary or for somewhere else I read, but Hank from the Bomb Squad was in DMC's car from Run DMC from the Bomb Pops, and he heard DMC play this song, "Don't Believe the Hype," before it came out, and like he was just kind of like, "What the fuck? Like, how did you even get these?" Like, oh, this other guy, and I guess this was a huge hit in Atlanta, and so he's like, "Oh yeah, I copied it from whatever radio station it was, like 103." Power 106 in Atlanta, and I love this song, and like you guys should do this, and it's cool. And there was an early rendition of this song, and like at first I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. Like these historic like people can like game recognizes game type of thing, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like, no, dude, like this stuff is coming out
straight
like in real time. It's coming out in real time. So you're hearing rough cuts of songs that will be on the album in a year from now, in a week from now, in a day from now. Who knows? And that's fucking rad. And it's not just that, but it's also like DMC, dude. They already had 3 records out prior to this. And he thinks you're good. And this guy's blowing up. And like, that's just, man, the East Coast scene was wild in the 80s.
It was, yeah.
Wild in the 80s.
And it's isn't it interesting how like in the 90s, the West Coast completely took over in the 90s? It really, we'll get into that next week on the 90s episode, but I think
I don't know if it completely took over.
It took over quite a bit of it. It was certainly the better.
I mean, 90s
better.
East Coast, you had 36 chambers, right? You had NAS, you had
I guess I'm talking more of on the mainstream side of it. But anyway, we're talking about Public Enemy.
Lauryn Hill.
Yeah, we're not okay. Yeah, we're never mind. I shouldn't have even said anything right now.
So you can get me going.
I know that.
Do you want me to open my notes? I'm gonna open my 90s notes. You want to open my 90s notes? I'll open them. Dude, I've already started my 2000s notes.
Oh my god! Wait till we get to the 2010s, which we may not even do that week. We may not even do it 2010s. We haven't made the final decision on that yet.
2000s were so good though. So it's just
2000s are great.
2010s are just dip off so dramatically,
like big time. But anyway.
Yeah. Also, did you ever catch? Like, did you know there was a Weezer reference? I guess a Public Enemy reference in Weezer.
No. What?
He's like, I'm the epitome of Public Enemy.
Public Enemy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I know.
Score show.
Yes. Yes, I get it. I get it. The reference because he literally says Public Enemy.
A Public Enemy. But that's what we should have done.
We should have done Pinkerton again. For like the 5th time.
Yeah. So anyway, this song is just rife with anger, frustration. The opener, "Caught you looking for the same thing." Dude, that is just like, that's one of my favorite lines of the entire record. "Caught you looking for the same thing." It's got so many cool layers to it, right? People thinking they're just going to get another bum rush. Just another same thing as the first record.
Just like, make me mad.
Just get me mad. I won't talk about it. And people thinking that all rap artists are just going to be the same because no one's taking rap seriously at this time. So, like, no, you know, there's great rap artists before this, but like nothing like this. So we're not really taking it seriously. And then the last thing is like the posers, dude. The posers who claim to want something new, refreshing. Like the radio disc jockeys, they always want, oh, what's the next big thing? Like, no, you don't want the next big thing. You want the next big thing that sounds like the last big thing. That's all you
True.
fucking play. And I'm sure I haven't lived
That's what
I haven't
sells,
lived
dude.
in Orange County. I haven't lived in LA in a long time, but I guarantee you they still play Nirvana on the hour, every hour. So they play Sublime, no doubt. All the same fucking things
Red
on
Hot
the
Chili
hour,
Peppers,
every
Foo
hour.
Fighters.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters on the
Yep.
hour, every hour.
Luckily,
Like,
I
no,
don't work in an office anymore. I work from home now, so I don't have to listen to the radio every day. But last year, yes, that was literally it. Every fucking hour.
Dude, that would be a wild drinking game, is to listen to K-Rock, and then every time you hear a song that was from the 90s or
Which is most
early
of the
2000s,
songs.
you drink.
Which is probably, I would say that's like 70 or 80% of what played on K-Rock still.
So it's just like
It's stuff from the 90s and 2000s.
You don't want the next big thing. You want the next big thing that just sounds exactly like the old next big thing.
And then on KLOS, the classic rock radio station here in LA, that would always play like Zeppelin and mostly 70s rock, rock. But now 95.5 KLOS,
no deep cuts.
It plays mostly 90s stuff now. So Green Day, Foo Fighters, pretty much a lot of what is played on K-Rock.
Rough.
Yeah.
So who plays like 95.5 stuff, like KLOS? Is that, what is 101 now?
K-Earth 101. K-Earth 101 plays, it still plays a lot of like the soft rock, but they have put in some of like the blues rock stuff from the 70s.
Huh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Stupid.
It's rough. It's stupid. It's just stupid. So yeah. And also
Anyway,
the other line too,
regional.
like in the daytime, so like the no line too that I really like. In the daytime, radio's scared of me because I'm mad. Plus I'm the enemy. Oh, because I'm mad, Ty.
I'm mad.
In the daytime, radio's scared of me because I'm mad. Plus I'm the enemy. Like, god damn, dude, that's straight confrontational at its finest.
Is. Well, everything about this group is confrontational. Like every fucking line is confrontational, no matter what it is. It's silly, but also this song too. Once again, a song with no hook, no melody. The hook is literally Flavor Flav being looped. The don't believe the hype. The don't believe the hype. So it's like Terminator is just scratching the record, like spinning the record, just scratching that a little bit, just to replay the don't believe the hype from Flavor Flav. It's fucking great. It's so stupid, but it works.
Yeah, I read too. I don't know if this is even like a true thing because I don't know anything about DJing, and I don't really care to know anything about DJing, to be honest. But I read that DJs would sometimes like scuff their records purposely.
Yeah,
like think like on the concrete, just like kind of scuff it, just to get a very aggressive kind of like crackly noise. If they found like a record that was in good condition, they would kind of like scuff it up a little bit to get that crackly sound. It's like, damn, dude, that's just like an extra like layer to like the nuance of DJing. And I think that DJs are like a good DJ blow your fucking mind.
Yeah, 100%.
In the same way anybody else playing the guitar, drums, any other instrument will blow your mind. A good DJ blow your fucking mind.
I agree. So the documentary, the Hip Hop Evolution documentary on Netflix that we've been watching to go along with this whole hip hop season. Do you remember the Grandmaster Flash section when he talks about, dude, first of all, Grandmaster Flash is extremely cocky. Like he's very kind of pretentious.
Grandmaster fucking Flash.
I know. I get it. I get it. But the way he's portrayed in the documentary, it's like, dude, you need to like calm down. I mean, you're great, yeah. He is, but I mean, come on. Anyway, so he was talking about like how he kind of like discovered how to make scratching easier, and he's like, yeah, I take a crayon. He still does it. He takes a crayon and he not writes on it, but like he makes a mark on the record on where he needs to like pull back to. He's like, I got to do it 4 times, and he gives an example. He marks the record, and then he pulls it back like 1, 2, 3, 4,
and it's precise. It's on fucking point.
It's fucking incredible. It's incredible. I was so impressed. I was so fucking impressed by it. But it's just his example of doing it was just amazing.
Now that I see like thousands of singles come through my store, and I see all these other DJs like write the little notes on, and I never knew what they were, honestly, until that documentary, until that fucking Grandmaster Flash scene. I never knew what all these little marks meant, because we've been collecting for a while now, and we've come across a lot of singles that we just damn near trash. But like all the DJs have their own little marks, and they all have like the same type of like overall marking. They'll write the BPMs, or they'll mark on the track that they want to use. They'll put a piece of tape. They will use marker. They'll use crayon, whiteout, whatever they got to do to make sure that they know this is where you start, this is where you stop.
Yeah.
And that's not. I don't know. Again, I'm not a DJ, so I have very, very limited knowledge. I understand the concept, just not the application. But I guess I'll just skip this whole thing because I don't give a fuck. But a good DJ, blow your mind.
Agreed. And also Grandmaster Flash said in that scene too, he said at the time, or even nowadays, when you see somebody touching a record, you're like, oh my God, don't touch the record. You're going to ruin it. And he's like, I thought the opposite. Like I'm using this as a tool. So my hands were all over it, mark on it. Because this is what I use. This is my tool. This is my instrument. And I thought, damn, dude, yes, I get it. Like watching somebody touch a record, like holding it like this is terrifying. Like or it's not terrifying. It's just like, oh my God, why are you doing that? You're going to ruin it. But you're really not going to ruin it that much, but you are.
It's funny when people bring records into our store and they take it out and they're so careful. And it's like, yeah, give me that thing. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. Because like people forget, dude, these have lasted, 50 years in somebody's garage, piled vertically like this, face down.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you touching this thing's not going to make a fucking difference.
Even still, I'm very careful with when I touch my records. I try my hardest not to. Well, okay, I've dropped a couple records. I've dropped a couple records.
A couple records.
Overall,
I'm never
very
seen
careful.
Anybody drop anything as much as you drop records.
I just drop a lot of things in general.
You do that. You fucking for like 20 seconds. You dropped your phone. Remember you dropped your phone?
Dude, I drop my phone all the time.
Instantaneous.
But I never break my phone. That's the thing.
That's true.
It always drops from like my leg. Like I always keep it on like the edge of my leg, and then it just tips over. Whatever. I drop a lot of
it more like slides off. It's like
slides
a slide.
Off,
yeah. It's like a slide.
I do drop a lot of things.
Cha-cha slide.
You get so fucking mad every time too.
Because
every time my phone falls off my leg.
There goes your phone.
So stupid.
This fucking guy. So
anyway.
Yeah, I don't. I have anecdotes. I have notes on songs.
You have bullshit.
Yeah. I have bullshit. What do you want? You want notes on songs? You want anecdotes? Do you want?
Well, I mean, don't believe the hype. Lyrically, don't believe the hype. This is like their counter to negative reviews of their first record and the group in general, and the negative press. And this is saying, don't believe everything you hear. Just actually listen to the music. Listen to what. There we go. There's two. He's done. So yeah, don't believe the negative reviews. Just listen to the music. Let it speak for itself. Listen to the message and everything else, and then you'll understand. So that's what this song is about.
Kid.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's what it is.
So that's your 2B.
Yeah.
My 2B is Cold Lampin' with Flavor. This song is so good, man.
Good. This is my 3B. This is
the only solo track from Flavor Flav. And honestly, he's not a bad rapper. He really, really is not. And a lot of people criticize him because he's the hype man and all that. But the dude can play a lot of instruments. He can rap just as well as a lot of rappers. He's not the greatest, but he raps well. And arguably he is the greatest frontman of all time, or hype man, not frontman, hype man of all time, like hands fucking down. And this song is straight up fun. The lyrics are complete nonsense. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's always talking about
talking.
He's always talking about Cole Medina, funky Cole Medina. That's all he fucking talks about on this whole record.
Constantly about
whole record.
Cole Medina's.
The whole fucking record. But that's what this song is. I don't think there's a lot of substance to this song. It's just a straight up fun song in the context of a very serious record with very deep meanings. That's why this one's as high as it is. It's just a fantastic song.
It's fun. And when they were doing a tour in like 2010 ish, and they were playing like 3-hour concerts, dude. They were playing all of this record. They were playing all of Fear of a Black Planet. And then they were playing just like greatest hits. And then they would do a segment where it was like 30 minutes and Flav would just get on the drum set and just play drums. And then Chuck D would just rap. and like that was in
So
the last
sick.
30 minutes, and it was just all like bum rush, and like that's so cool, dude. It's just like two dudes shitting around right there. It's
Yeah.
like the most purest form of hip hop possible. Like it is amazing and it's so rad. And this is the closest we get to that on this record. It's like that pure form of just two dudes shitting around.
Yeah. And also, you
It's
know, these guys met in college. They met fairly young. They've always been kind of like partners in music and political ideologies and all that kind of shit, which is so cool. Like up until like 2020, 2021, where there was that split where they said it was a like a media stunt or a publicity stunt
like
where they broke up,
like a joke. Yeah.
like a joke where they fired
That
Flavor
was
Flav.
weird.
Yeah, it
That
was
was
super
weird.
fucking. We even talked about it on the podcast too. It was just like, dude, this is not a publicity stunt. You're just trying to,
Yeah.
you know,
Weird.
yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it's just kind of cool. Like these guys went through everything together, like the ups and downs, the good, the bad, everything. It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like the relationship that Flav and Chuck D had is like, dude, clearly like Flavor had some problems, right? The whole Surreal Life, or was it Surreal Life?
The reality shows, yeah, Surreal Life.
The rehab, yeah. Like he went to that whole thing, and like clearly the dude's going through some shit. And just because you're not going through some shit, like doesn't mean that you can like diminish what he's going through and like discount and write it off. And so that was a weird thing. But like we don't know what it's like to be in a group that's not just successful, but also like historically influential. Like that kind of pressure that's got to get to you. That's got to get to you. So I don't know. I don't discount any of the weirdness that has happened. I guess discount's probably the wrong word.
Same here. I get what you're saying. So what's your your 3B is Cold Lampin'.
Yeah, Cold Lampin'.
So my 3B is Terminator X to the Edge of Panic.
Terminator X to the Edge of Panic. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good one. Where does this one sit for you?
This is one. I mean, this is just Rebel Without a Pause backwards. So it's not. It's not like you take this one out of the context of the record, because this is right after Cold Lampin', right? Yeah. So like sequentially, this is extremely important, because now we just got two of like the most aggressive hip hop songs to date. And then we get to calm down a little bit with Flav. And then we get to calm down even more with Terminator X. And then we get to calm down a lot with Mind Terrorist before we get back into it. But like you take Terminator X on its own, and it's just, I don't want to say it's okay, because he's still a fucking fantastic DJ. But this is just, it literally is Rebel Without a Pause backwards.
I mean, maybe.
No, it literally is.
Maybe I'm just not familiar with the album enough to make that comparison.
No, they literally took Rebel Without a Pause and played it backwards and just added things to it. It's the exact same song. It's just backwards, yes.
Okay. Is that just your thing? Like, or is this
No,
like
that's literally what it is. I'm telling you, that's what it is.
Right.
That's what it is. They didn't know what else to do, and so they played it backwards. And I'll play something over this. And then he's like, okay. And then he did like, oh, is that the other song? Yeah, this is those. Don't play it backwards. No, it's the same exact song. It's just backwards.
Well, okay.
It's cool though.
Okay.
It's a good song.
I guess I didn't know that, and fuck me, right? So
no, not fuck you. Fuck nobody. Nobody gets fucked. No fucking. Like
no, so this song, I mean, the sample that's used, whether it's backwards, whatever it is, the sample is crazy, stupid, and obnoxious and weird, and it's like it's abrasive. It's fucking abrasive. That whistling sound, or like the horn, whatever it is, I don't know what it is. It's abrasive. Vocal delivery is super strong, and then I do love the part too where it's going back and forth between like they would like gang vocal like Terminator, and then he does like the scratching, and then he'll yell it again. He'll do another do some more scratching and fucking around on the turntable. So it's just like good call and response. There's a lot of cool shit happening on this song. It's fucking fantastic.
It's that horn sample. That's I think it was called the something, the grunt from a James Brown song, which is kind of funny
for it too.
So like here's not just my 2 cents on sampling and all of that, but I think music is inherently borrowed, right? We talk about contemporary music in the sense that rock music in its general sense, based off of blues music, based off of spirituals, based off of folk tracks, whatever, it's sampled. Everything is sampled. chord structures. Like you're not bringing anything new to like chord structures, to scales, to anything. Maybe melodies here or there you are inventing, because there's almost like an infinite amount of melodies you can come up with based on the finite amount of notes given in a scale. But music is like inherently borrowed. And so when I this whole thing, like this whole like article that I wanted you to read that you didn't fucking read, made me change my mind on the whole thing, because they were like, music is central, like contemporary music is like belongs to black people, right? Blues like belongs to black people, based off of spirituals, based off of like field haulers. It belongs to black people. Therefore, anything borrowed from there should not have to pay somebody else for that thing being borrowed. So if something from like the 1800s evolved into Son House, which evolved into like Muddy Waters, which evolved into like James Brown, which evolved into Public Enemy, like now why does Public Enemy have to pay the guy that produced the James Brown record, who's not like a black dude type of thing, right?
Yeah, I
like
get
that,
it. I get what you mean. I get what you
saying. That whole like step and transitions thing seems weird. And again, when I read this article, it really made a lot of sense here. And now we've been drinking and talking about it a lot.
I mean, I think what it comes down to, a lot of the lawsuits come into play because of the record labels and the
and who
songwriters.
Owns these record labels, right?
And that's what
like,
I'm saying. That's what I'm
labels?
saying. Like it's not the artist that's filing these lawsuits. It's the record labels or the publishers or whatever it is. It's never really the artist that's suing. It's everybody surrounding the artist that's suing for plagiarism or whatever it may be.
We literally have no problem. We have no problem singing every White Stripes song, which is just a fucking blues standard. Yes. Every White Stripes song is just a generic blues standard.
It is.
Maybe a different melody thrown here and there. We have no problem doing that. But then when like Public Enemy samples a couple like James Brown songs, which is funny because the James Brown song I think that he sampled here, The Grunt, was actually an Isley Brothers song that was like lifted almost verbatim, just a little bit more aggressive. And it's just like now the whole world loses their fucking mind. And that's just, like that's what Bring the Noise is, man. That's what fucking It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back is railing against that mentality.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck D has said like he loves sampling. Like he said, sampling should never. There's a song on this record that talks about, that makes fun of like being sued for sampling another person's song or beat or whatever it may be. And he's like, I'm in full support of sampling. People could sample me. They sample themselves over and over again. They constantly sample themselves throughout their entire career. Like he's all for that. He's for file sharing. He's for all of that. As long as you're trying to, in the end, I think it comes down to like, as long as you're trying to get a message across to the masses, like something important, significant, then it's worth it. It's worth this having a beat taken from you.
I think like sampling to me and hip hop to me is like when you see those videos of like Native Americans walking into like Arizona museums and they walk up to an artifact and they grab it from the museum and they walk out with it. And they essentially steal it, right? And they, what the fuck? Like, call the police. It's like, well, actually, this belongs to like my people. Okay. Like, what do you fucking say to that? You know what I mean? Like,
no,
I agree. You fucking say anything. Like, it's your shit. Just take it. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Have a good day. Like, what the fuck do you say to that? You can't say anything to that.
You can't say anything. Yeah.
And that's like literally what I think like hip hop music is they are sampling, they are borrowing from things that fucking already belongs to them. Like it's already theirs anyway.
Yeah. But also I think when it comes to music, it's different because you're borrowing it. You're not stealing it. You're borrowing it. You're using it as a way of expressing your own art, your own music. It's different than taking something tangible like an artifact, like a piece of like a pot or something like that, or a painting. You know, like an audio medium is so different than taking a piece of art, or than taking like, you know, a painting or something like that. It's way, way different. I don't think it's a fair comparison.
Why not?
I really don't. Because an audio medium is very, very different. It's way more broad. it's harder to
but like the whole like the most common chord progression, right? The whatever the 1 5
I mean,
6
I
4
get,
or whatever the fuck it is.
I do
The
understand
most
what you're
common
saying,
chord
though.
progression of all time, right? Who came up with that? Who popularized that? And if that was said person, if that was a certain demographic of people, of person, then that kind of belongs to that demographic of person. And if we're going to just like Romeo and Juliet, right? Like all like I've said in the past, like all love stories after Romeo and Juliet are just iterations of that story.
Yeah.
Like that's still fucking Shakespeare. Like he still wrote Romeo and Juliet. He still wrote the greatest love story of all time. So whenever we see,
He wrote a love story.
fucking You've Got Mail or where the fuck it is, we're just watching a
Why do you always go back? Why do you always like fall back on You've Got Mail?
Because
like,
I want you to watch it.
You
it's good.
always
It
fall back on that movie. I don't get it.
And it's not even anything like Romeo and Juliet, but it's a good movie. But whoever was the first person to kind of like do that, like they kind of have like a say in this. But because they're not around, like who has a say in this? And like the people do, right? The people do. And so whenever we hear like Eric Clapton is suing, or we're like motherfucking Eric Clapton sued these guys. It's like, oh my god, dude, Eric Clapton, the guy who's lifted every fucking thing of his fucking life,
his whole career, Get the fuck
out of here.
Staying for Muddy Waters, Son House,
wild to me.
Yeah,
and that's wild to me. And again, like for all intents and purposes, if I was in a museum and I saw anybody, and I'm looking at something that belonged to a certain demographic of people, and I saw somebody that's a descendant of that demographic of people walk in, grab that artifact, and walk out, I ain't seen a goddamn thing.
Yeah, I would agree.
Bass.
All right. Let's I mean, dude, we've talked about, let's kind of do like a summary, because I mean we've only talked about a few songs.
Here's some fun anecdotes. So NWA and Public Enemy were going on tour.
Trying to wrap this up, and you're like, let me tell you some anecdotes here.
Yeah, I got so much stuff, bro. Let's go on. This is the 80s, dude. I don't even really like the 80s that much. Wait till we get to the 90s.
I know. It's gonna be a wild one.
I have so much notes for the 90s. We have not even decided what record we're doing. That's how bad it's gonna be.
Know. It's true. We have a pretty good idea of what we're gonna do, but it's not in stone.
So
yet.
Public Enemy and NWA were on tour in like the mid 80s, like 86, 87 ish. And they got early copies of this record, of this stuff, mostly like singles and stuff, mostly like if I can Bring the Noise, and Chuck gave it specific, like handed it over to Dre and Easy, and he was like, hey, like, what do you guys think? Because Chuck loved NWA, and they loved Public Enemy. He's like, hey, what do you think? And they were like, dude, this is fucking, well,
I heard that one.
I can't stop talking.
You can hear it come up. Anyway,
I know.
People come up.
I can't stop. People come up.
Yeah. There's another one.
God damn. There, now we're good. And of course the fucking dogs are going up. I don't care. I'm gonna keep going, baby. I'm gonna keep going, baby. Yeah. So he handed it to Easy and Dre, and that's wild to think that not only were they the first like two people kind of in the more broad spectrum of musicians to hear this record, but also that I think this is why I go back to why NWA is not why Straight Outta Compton is not the best record of the album or the decade, because I can't help but think that they took influence from this record, and the record meaning like the couple songs they heard. Yeah. I remember like, fuck, we gotta do better. We gotta be better. Right. We have to be better. Because whatever we have, it ain't this. And that's why on Straight Outta Compton, we get 3 tracks that are heavy as fuck. But then we get like 70% of a record that's electro hip hop. Same shit we've heard. Yeah. Because how do you replicate this? And I guess I can go to my record wrap up now if you want me to.
Well, I'm not saying let's not do a record wrap up yet, but just kind of like, I mean, we've talked a lot about the background of this record. We've talked a lot about the lyrical content. Overall, not specifically.
Bassheads.
Wait, which one? Do you want to get into Bassheads, and then we'll kind of
Bassheads, and we'll call it, just because that video. Did you watch the video for Bassheads?
I didn't watch the video. No.
Damn, dude, the video for Bassheads was one of those, and this is a very like hip hop thing to do. The video for Bassheads was it was like 6 minutes long, 7 minutes long, but it was one of those. I think the Beastie Boys really like made me realize that this happens in hip hop. like the song's 3 minutes, but the video's like 6 minutes.
Yeah,
And because it was like a skit, it was a whole SNL thing going on. It was a production. And that's what Baseheads was. And Baseheads was just, it was essentially a short film, but it really dove into like the crack epidemic.
Yeah.
The crack epidemic, but like specifically,
which is something I did want to talk about. Yeah. Because it is important.
Yeah. Like how it affected certain people, and not just like black folk, white folk, but also like families of baseheads. And that was the whole like thing of Night of Living Baseheads. I'll play on the Night of Living Dead. And it was just, it was cool. It was a good video and it was really well done. And at one point they brought up the whole thing of like, why is it, if you have like, I think it was like 5 grams of crack, it's the same punishment as like 500 grams of cocaine. And it's just like, bro, like, come on, my guy. Like, who the fuck? Hello, people. Like, that's wild. And so, like, in the video, it showed people on Wall Street, all white people, and they bust open the door. And I think it was MC Light actually on as the reporter, and she was reporting, and they opened the door, and it's all like white Wall Street folk doing a bunch of cocaine, but knowing they're not going to get in trouble for it because you can do cocaine, but crack is bad. But cocaine's okay.
Crack is whack, right? According to Whitney Houston.
Yeah, crack is whack. But then like they had the KKK in there, but it wasn't the KKK. It was the brown bag crew or some shit like that. So it was like brown bags over their head. And it was just, dude, it was a very, very aggressive music video. And it was very, very funny. But it was also kind of just like hindsight's always 2020. You look back on it like, wow, dude, that was a horrible, horrible decade. And Reagan was kind of a fucking asshole for the most part of his presidency, and kind of a fucking douchebag. Fuck you up. Dude, I'm spent.
No, but I mean, I think some of the most important lyrics on this entire record are talking about the crack epidemic and how a lot of that, I believe too, along with these guys in this group, that it was all purposely done by the U.S. government for the U.S. because it was to experiment on human culture, communities, but it was also to help, make money for the prison system, the privatized prison system. There's a lot of money that goes into that whole thing, and incarcerating people for minor drug offenses, that was a big fucking thing in the 80s and 90s as well. And so I think it's extremely important that somebody like Chuck D was talking about it in the 80s, like it's the late 80s, 1988. But I mean, this also leads to his paranoia and probably being wiretapped and followed and watched by CIA, FBI, whatever. Maybe
I don't
whatever
doubt for a
government
second
agency.
that he was followed and watched. And
I 100% believe it. I mean, he had this going against him, according to the government. He had this going against him. He had the Islam going against him as well. I mean, because he was very outspoken for Islam and all of that kind of stuff. And that was like the whole Israel Palestine thing for the last 60 years has been a huge touchy subject, and all of his references towards Islam has been extreme, not extreme, but just not extreme, but just outspoken. He's been very outspoken for Islam.
And Griff with his fucking anti-Semitic fucking nonsense that he's
that's a whole nother
spat
thing.
out. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, the Night of Living Baseheads too. He specifically gets angry at like black on black crimes. He specifically gets mad at like why the fuck are you targeting like your own people? Like there are bigger enemies we should all be fighting. There are bigger fish to fry. Like why the fuck are you doing this?
And that's a big
and it's
thing
cool.
too.
Like in the video, when you see like one of the best parts of the videos, they go into this house and it's all full of smoke. It's to mimic like the crack in the household there.
Yeah.
Like the smoke in the household. But like there's kids there, and the woman, she's sitting in the corner. She's a big fat black eye, and she kind of like tries to hide it. And it's just like, damn, dude, like this is not, even though this is fake, this is not fake. Mm-hmm. And that is wild. And we kind of like pass it off as kind of like jokey, and it's meant to be kind of like a prank and like a joke thing, but sad. It is sad and it's wild.
Yeah, a lot of inner cities and shit like that.
And you can see like statistically, we've never like recovered from this. Like black on black crimes has never like quite recovered from this.
No, not in the big. No, absolutely not.
And
It's
like
terrible. It's
in the
fucking
80s,
terrible.
like, after like Reagan selling fucking guns to like enemies and shit, like I don't doubt for a fucking second that they'd like literally helicopters dropping crack into like horrible neighborhoods that had no money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at a lot of the government interference and shit within the black communities prior back in the 60s. The whole syphilis thing. I forgot the name of that whole project, but the whole
Like
syphilis
specifically in infecting
black
people with syphilis and
yeah.
seeing how long they can go before they get fucked up.
Yeah, and they were only doing this in the black communities because people cared less. It's so fucked up. It's so fucked up. But goddamn, but I mean, but once again, it's just like, and then people think like, oh, the government is here to help us, this and that. It's just like, well, look at their fucking track record. No, they're not at all, especially within the black community. I mean, every community has their own issues, but obviously the black community has been hit very, very hard. But damn.
That's why that's why like the sampling thing, I don't know. I'm very, very torn because like just because you take somebody else's like what about AI, right? Like AI,
Yeah.
you can't own somebody's voice. Just because you sound like Tupac does not make you Tupac. Just because you sound like George Carlin does not make you George Carlin.
It's true. I totally agree with you. Totally
So it's
agree
like,
with you.
like,
Especially if there's like a disclaimer saying like this is this is not George Carlin. This is not Tupac Shakur. Yeah, definitely. But even still,
I don't know.
Even still, it's like
wild.
why it's like why doesn't Greta Van Fleet get in trouble for plagiarizing?
Right, exactly.
Or any cover band, why doesn't Atomic Punks get in trouble from the Van Halen crew? And we all know how crazy Eddie Van Halen was. Why didn't he ever go after Atomic Punks? They're one of the biggest,
are literally making money off of being a cover band.
Exactly, and they're one of the biggest.
A living.
Yeah, and that goes for any like big cover band. Like why not go after them? Led Zeppelin, yes, that's a big one too. I always forget about the Iron.
Isn't that horrible?
The Iron Maidens, yeah.
I've never seen the Iron Maidens, but I've seen Led Zeppelin and I've seen the Atomic Punks.
Me too, yeah.
And I hate that I've seen them.
It's so silly.
Because they're always at the House of Blues Anaheim.
I know, they were always there. They probably still are. I don't know.
It wasn't fucking Social D. It was one of those stupid bands.
Yeah, one of those cover bands. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, like why don't they get fucking shit on? You know what I mean? Like, come on.
It's really it's honestly no different than using AI to create a song or create whatever it is. You're still it's just all fucking stupid. But anyway, that's AI talk. Who cares? Let's wrap
it up, baby boy.
Give our final thoughts on this record. I mean, we've probably missed a lot of shit, but whatever. We're a couple white guys.
Much. Again, there's a lot. 8-hour seminar.
Yeah. And anyway, yeah. Final thoughts.
I think
rate the record. We have a 3-point rating system where 3 is a perfect album, 2 is a good album you're going to continue to listen to, 1 is a bad album, give it a shot, and 0 is the worst thing you've ever heard. So, final thoughts, rate the record. Let's move on. Go.
I think hip hop is unique in that it keeps the mentality of borrowing to create something new in music, but it does it in a way that it's been easy to target and profit off of, right? Whereas, like we talked about Greta Van Fleet and Atomic Punks, like you're not borrowing. That's like stealing. You're not taking something and creating something new. Whereas hip hop takes something and creates something new. I think that's the difference between borrowing and stealing. Is hip hop takes and creates, whereas like cover songs and a lot of fucking stuff Jack White does is just literally taking and stealing.
And we like Jack White.
I do like Jack White a lot.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff is just fucking so goddamn good. Because they're fucking just blues standards and they're really fucking great. Like you can't fuck them up, but whatever. For instance, like borrowing chord progressions that we talked about with Jack White and stuff. That's a major part of music, blues, jazz, whatever. But this takes it to that extreme. This says like, yes, this is what we're going to do. And not only are we going to do it, but I'm going to do it and I'm not going to fucking pay you for it because it belongs to me. Like as a black man, it belongs to me. And that's what Chuck D is saying on this record. And that's a whole song about sampling. He's like, I don't give a fuck. Like this is my people's music and I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want with it. And again, dude, there's no punk band, punk music ever that's been that aggressive, that like, what do you like, not demanding, when you say ultimatum, right? Like when I say something and that's definitive,
It's not an
Like, here's what's gonna
ultimatum.
happen. You're gonna fucking listen to it. Like that type of mentality. It's not ultimatum. There's
No,
a
it's
word
not
for
ultimatum.
that, right?
That's not a
Like, matter of
demand. A
fact
demand. It's a demand.
it's not a
It's more
demand
of a
because he doesn't want
demand.
anything. He's just telling you what's gonna happen. You're gonna fucking do it. Kind of like a parent telling a child,
A
right? Like, brush your
command. It's a
teeth because I
command.
fucking a
It's a
command,
command. There you go.
commanding. Yes,
Yeah.
command. I guess there's another. I know there's
English.
a specific word
English.
for it. I know
It's
there's a
hard.
specific word for it. I can't. But command's a good word. So the reason why I think this is the greatest hip hop record of the 80s and one of the best of all time is because of how commanding it is. Because we have not heard any music in this capacity be this commanding, be this confrontational, and also be unique. But I think like hip hop gets a bad rap because it's not unique, because it borrows and the samples, and you're not creating something new. But I really beg to differ. And you hear, man, you're like, hip hop's not going away, and it's here to stay, and it's still new. It's still in its kind of its 70s rock phase, right? With the 2010s here, 2020s here. It's still evolving into something. People don't really like it. I don't really like it, but it's still going somewhere, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. So yeah, what do you rate this record after that tangent?
Yeah, I don't know. Trying to like connect that back to my rating was tough.
You can't do it.
I was like, meow. This is one of those records that we come across them from time to time where it's so important to say like, oh, this is a 3 out of 3. That doesn't quite give it its due. It's too easy. I think if this record came out today in 2024, I think it would be a 3 out of 3. I think if Public Enemy had just formed and they dropped this record surprisingly and everybody heard this and was like, oh wow, this is a good fucking record, I think today it would be a 3 out of 3. I think in 1988, I don't think you can even rate this shit. I think it's
too significant.
It's so important.
Yeah.
It's so fucking important to hip hop. It's so important to music. It's so important to like black and white relations. You look at these old concerts where like Public Enemy's opening for Anthrax, and it's just predominantly white kids in that crowd.
Yeah.
And then you also look at the concerts like post 90s, right? Like 92 when they went on tour again. Maybe 91 or 92 went on tour again. And it's still predominantly white kids. And it's still like Public Enemy, not opening, but now like Anthrax is kind of like co-headlining with Public Enemy. And it's like, dude, this truly is like Elvis stuff. This is like bridging the gap between like white kids and black kids. They all are there for the same reasons. They fucking hate people telling them what to do and how to be. And this is one of the most punk records of all time.
I would agree.
So I'm not even gonna rate it because it's off the scale on the Richter scale that we have of 3 out of 3. That's what the Richter scale should be when they have like
earthquakes.
Like earthquakes, it should be out of 3. 3 is you're dead. Like everybody's dead.
Well, that's essentially what a 10 on the Richter scale is you're pretty much
that's
dead.
Stupid. That's why it's dumb. 3 should be like,
that's why I
3
think
is like Haiti. 3 is like,
I think on the Richter scale, I think the highest it's ever been is like 8.5 or something like that out of 10.
I think if also, just because we're talking about earthquakes and how exciting is that,
I
also think that
geology.
I also thought that maybe it was in college because I really liked my geology class, but I thought that my geology teacher said that LA was actually hit and it was centered by anything above a 6.0, it would decimate the city. It would just crumble and fall and cease to exist, and that's scary.
Yeah,
because 6, I don't get up for a 6. Pussy shit.
Don't even get up for a 6. Man, earthquakes or something. Anyway, why are we talking about earthquakes? No. So my final thoughts.
I didn't rate it. I couldn't rate it.
Yeah, you can't.
It's unrateable.
So my final thoughts on this one, on this Public Enemy record. I think this is a widely influential record. I think it's still very underrated in the scope of music in general. This record only sold over, about 2 million records. Since it came out in 1988, it hasn't sold that many records, but it's so influential within the scene, both underground wise as well as mainstream wise. What they were doing musically with the sampling, and DJ Terminator, what he was doing, Terminator X, just like it was unprecedented. Like they were doing shit that they created some of this shit here. Lyrically, I think it's very, very progressive. It's very it's abrasive, it's aggressive, it's extremely aggressive. And bringing it back to like punk music, the only other artists you could, I mean, I would honestly compare them to at this time would be Dead Kennedys, with how aggressive the lyrics were. You know, Dead Kennedys were the white punkers. You know, Public Enemy were the black kids. You know, the black guys, black kids. You know, in hip hop and everything. You have both. They were both going after the same establishment, the same things, but in different musical styles, which is super fucking cool. I fucking love that. But you honestly, I mean, to me, you haven't seen anything like that since the 80s. Like Rage did it in the 90s, but even in the end, it had already been done by Public Enemy and Dead Kennedys. Like they were the OGs of this like political, like the true political, like fuck you to the establishment. Obviously people were doing it in the 60s and 70s, but there was no like true, let's call out like this particular person, but do it in a clever way and really just kind of like get down to the nitty gritty of it and say how fucked up the real bad people are. Like the whole hippie movement, that was all CIA bullshit. That was all a giant fucking psyop. But in the end, that could also be said for Dead Kennedys and Public Enemy and a lot of the shit in the 80s. But this seems more authentic than a lot of the hippie shit in the 60s.
To compare like Dead Kennedys and Public Enemies is fair and fine and all, but the repercussions from saying fuck the police when Jello said it versus when Chuck D said it is like, don't you say that anymore, Jello, versus like,
we're gonna fucking arrest you. Yeah,
you're gonna go to jail.
Yeah,
and that's like the biggest difference. And like even like ball players like Reggie Jackson, dude, he just like one of my favorite ball players too, but baseball players. But you hear him talk about like his time in California, like in the 80s and stuff, and the way he talks about being with the Angels and like the way they were like, nah, dude, you guys can stay here, but not him. And like that's fucking wild, dude. And like his team was like, no, if he doesn't stay here, we don't stay here. Go fuck yourself. It's like because he had a good team behind him, like he progressed forward and was better. But there's definitely a big difference between like us saying like, oh fuck you,
no,
because
like,
we know we're not gonna we know we're not gonna die, right?
I totally agree with you. That's not the point I was making. The point I'm saying is that it's the only other band or artist that you can compare Public Enemy to on a larger level would be Dead Kennedys. Like they had the same mentality. They had the same impact on the music scene. I mean, obviously, I think Public Enemy had a bigger impact on hip hop than Dead Kennedys did on punk, because punk is still a very niche thing. Punk still never blew up the same way hip hop has. But in the end, it's the same. Like it's the 1980s. They're pretty much talking about the same thing. So with that, it's an extremely important record on every level. I still don't think it's the most impactful record in hip hop.
Wild.
I still think
fucking Straight Outta Compton.
Only because gangster rap was so enormous, that's
crazy.
Because of what happened in the 90s. I think that's the only reason why NWA is more important. Okay. And also because
I'm going to revisit this
but also I'll get into I'm not going to go down that road. I'll get in because I do have something to say about NWA and how kind of simplified their message was compared to, let's say, Public Enemy. So it spoke to more people. NWA spoke to more people, which made them more influential. But anyway, Public Enemy, Takes a Nation, 3 out of 3. I don't care. I don't do it often. It's a 3 out of 3. That's what I rate it. So thank you all for listening. Go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars, tell all your friends, share all the posts. We're in hip hop season, baby. We're doing the 90s next week. We're going to get in one episode all about 90s hip hop, underground, regional, all that kind of shit. Keep mocking me. That's fun.
It's gonna be wild next week.
It is
wild
to the point where we don't even know what we're going to do as the album of the week. We haven't even decided that yet. We haven't decided. We decided 2000s era, but not 90s yet. So anyway, I think we did, didn't we? We did. Yeah, we did 2000s anyway. So that's it. That's all.